There is no gentle fade in, no soft landing. One moment, you're somewhere else. The next, reality is torn open, and you are spat out into a world that immediately tries to assault you with pure, unfiltered joy. The light is the first thing that hits you. It's a physical force, a chemical brightness so intense it feels like staring into the sun through a bag of Skittles. The sky isn't blue. It's a flat, perfect digital cerulean that looks painted on, mocking the very concept of an atmosphere. The grass is a shade of green so lurid, so aggressively vibrant, it seems to hum with a low, sickening energy. Congratulations, your retinas are now officially seared. And then comes the sound. It's not a gentle bird song or the whisper of the wind. It's a relentless, looping, 8-bit melody that drills directly into your prefrontal cortex. A chipper, maddeningly upbeat tune that promises adventure but delivers only the creeping certainty that you are trapped in the world's most aggressive welcome seminar. It never stops. It never changes. It is the soundtrack to your slowly fracturing sanity. You clamp your hands over your ears, but it's no use. The music is in the air itself, a permanent feature of the landscape, like the unnervingly geometric hills in the background and the clouds that... Wait, are those clouds smiling at you? Yes. Yes, they are. You need to move, to find shelter, to find an explanation, to find the off switch for that music. You decide to take a simple, cautious step forward. You tense your calf, push off with your foot, and the world betrays you. You don't step. You launch. You rocket 10 feet into the air, a clumsy, flailing marionette, before crashing back down with a jolt that rattles your teeth and sends a shockwave up your spine. You try again, with less force. The same result. Your body, your muscles, your lifetime of understanding gravity and momentum, it's all useless here. Every attempt at normal locomotion results in a ridiculous, uncontrolled leap. Your internal gyroscope is fried. You are a human being trapped in a physics engine designed for a cartoon plumber. A miscalculation doesn't mean a stumble. It means careening headfirst into a floating brick, and you're not alone. Something is approaching. It waddles towards you with a strange, gliding motion, its footsteps making no sound. It's a short, squat creature with a massive mushroom cap for a head, a perpetually cheerful vest, and 2 black, soulless dots for eyes. This, you assume, is a local, a guide, a friend. But as it gets closer, a cold dread trickles down your back. The smile on its face isn't a real expression. It's fixed, painted on, a rictus of joy that doesn't reach its dead, vacant eyes. The creature, a toad, stops before you. Its head tilts with the unnatural smoothness of a badly programmed animatronic. It opens its mouth, and a high-pitched, tinny voice squeaks out a single, unhelpful phrase about a princess and a castle. It doesn't wait for a response. It doesn't seem to register your terror, your confusion, or your desperate need for answers. It just stands there, smiling that terrible, empty smile. You have been here for 5 minutes. You are half blinded by the light, driven to madness by the music, betrayed by the very ground you stand on, and greeted by a creature straight out of a forgotten fever dream. You are utterly, terrifyingly alone in a world that wears happiness like a mask to hide its monstrous indifference. But as you stare past the grinning horror show in front of you, you see something else moving in the distance, a small, brown, mushroom-like thing, ambling along with a determined frown. It almost looks cute. A piece of native fauna, perhaps. Surely not everything here can be a nightmare, right? That small brown mushroom thing keeps waddling closer. A Goomba, your brain supplies, dredged from some half-forgotten childhood memory. It has no arms, just a pair of tiny feet, and a unibrow that gives it a look of perpetual mild annoyance. It doesn't seem threatening. It's barely knee-high. You could just step around it, but it adjusts its course, putting itself directly in your path. It's not attacking, just obstructing. You try to sidestep, but your clumsy, superpowered jump sends you careening sideways. You're going to land right on top of it. You brace for a soft squish, a comical poof. What you get is a wet, resonant crunch. The sensation travels from the sole of your worn-out shoe, up your leg, and settles in your stomach like a cold stone. It wasn't like stepping on a mushroom. It was like stepping on a crab, a sickening give and then crack of a living exoskeleton. You stumble back, lifting your foot. There's a flattened, pulpy mess on the grass. You just crushed a sentient being, a creature that was walking, thinking. Well, maybe not thinking complex thoughts, but it was alive. And you ended it. This isn't a game. There was no point ding, no triumphant jingle, just the silent, damning evidence of your first act of violence in this pastel-colored hell. Welcome to the food chain. You're not at the top. You're just the thing with the heavy boots. Before you can have a proper existential crisis, you hear a rhythmic scraping sound. It's a Koopa Troopa, a bipedal turtle with big, friendly eyes, plodding along with the dopey determination of a DMV employee at the end of his shift. This one you're not going to crush. You're smarter now. You'll just disable it. As it gets close, you give its shell a solid kick. It works. The turtle's head and limbs vanish into the shell, and it clatters to a stop. You feel a surge of pride, a moment of control. That is, until the shell begins to spin. It revs like a tiny, organic engine before shooting off, a green, scythed missile of keratin and bone. It ricochets off a nearby tree with a deafening crack and comes screaming back towards your shins. This isn't an enemy you defeated. This is a weapon you just activated, and it has no guidance system. You spend the next 10 seconds frantically leaping and scrambling as your own attack turns on you, a sentient projectile of pure, unthinking chaos. It's a game of Russian roulette, where the bullet has a mind of its own. It finally smashes into a floating brick, shattering it into 1,000 pieces, and falls harmlessly to the ground. You are left breathing heavily, sweat stinging your eyes, realizing that your every interaction with the local fauna is a new and exciting way to accidentally end your own existence. But the true horror isn't in the things that walk, it's in the things that wait. You see it up ahead, a large green pipe, wide enough for a person to fit inside, a sewer pipe. In your world, it would smell awful, a place to be avoided. But here, under the relentless sun and that maddening music, it represents shade. It represents a potential escape. You cautiously approach, peering over the edge into the darkness. A sudden burst of foul, compost heap air hits your nostrils. And then you see it, a flash of white and red. A gaping maw filled with teeth, like sharpened daggers, lunges up from the depths, snapping shut inches from your face with the sound of a bear trap. A piranha plant. It's not a plant. It's an ambush predator, a flesh-eating nightmare living in the kingdom's plumbing system. You scramble back, your heart hammering against your ribs. Every pipe is a potential monster's den. Every shadow could be hiding teeth. The creatures here don't play by the rules of nature. They are a menagerie of weaponized absurdities. You've just met the welcoming committee. And if the living things are this committed to your demise, what about the world they inhabit? What kind of cosmic madman designed a world with bottomless pits for sidewalks and floating bricks for a ceiling? You somehow survive your first few encounters with the cheerfully murderous wildlife, only to be confronted with a more insidious and omnipresent threat, the world itself. It's an environment actively hostile to your continued breathing, a landscape designed by a committee of sadists with a grudge against common sense. Let's start with the most obvious feature, the floating blocks. They hang in the air with a smug defiance of gravity, arranged in patterns that seem to dare you to jump on them. But who put them there? Why? They are made of brick, solid and unyielding. You know this because your first miscalculated jump sent you headfirst into one with a skull-rattling thud. You're now sporting a world-class migraine and a healthy fear of looking up. These aren't just architectural quirks, they're airborne hazards. Some of them shimmer with a faint, questioning light, marked with a cryptic question mark. Is it a trap? A reward? A cosmic joke? You're not desperate enough to find out, not yet. All you know is that your entire field of vision is a minefield of blunt force trauma suspended in midair. There are no building permits here. There is no structural engineering. There's just brick, waiting to meet your face. But at least the bricks are a visible threat. The real killer is the negative space. The ground beneath your feet is not a continuous, reliable surface. It is a treacherous patchwork of solid land and gaping, bottomless chasms. Chasms that yawn into a featureless void. There are no guardrails, no warning signs, no cheerful park ranger telling you to watch your step. One moment you're on unnaturally green grass. The next you're one clumsy hop away from falling into nothingness for all eternity. Every leap is a life-or-death gamble. The pressure is immense. Your calves are burning from the constant, unnatural jumping, and your mind is frayed from the non-stop risk assessment. Is that gap 4 feet or 5? Can I make it? The alternative is simply ceasing to be. This isn't a hiking trail. It's a final exam for a physics class you never took. If you manage to navigate this open-air death trap, you'll eventually see it looming on the horizon, a castle. A fortress of dark, foreboding stone that looks like it was ripped from a heavy metal album cover. Bowser's Castle. This, you think, must be where the answers are, or at least where the princess is supposed to be. But the closer you get, the more the architecture screams, "Turn back." The entire structure is a symphony of industrial malice. Bridges over bubbling lakes of lava have no handrails. Giant spiked pillars slam down from the ceiling in unpredictable rhythms. The hallways are lined with cannons that fire an endless supply of sentient bullets with angry eyes. And the air? It reeks of sulfur and ozone, a smell that claws at the back of your throat. And then there are the pipes. Those green sewer pipes are everywhere, jutting out of the ground like metallic weeds. You saw what came out of one. But you've also seen the kingdom's alleged hero, a portly man in overalls, leap into them without hesitation. Maybe they are a transportation system, a shortcut. You find one that seems quiet, muster all your courage, and take the plunge. You're enveloped in total, claustrophobic darkness. The air is thick with the stench of damp metal and something vaguely fungal. You slide down a rough, cold tube, your clothes catching on unseen rivets, until you're spat out into a dark, wet cavern. It's a sewer, filled with ankle-deep, murky water and more of those homicidal mushroom things. You took a shortcut from a sun-drenched nightmare into a subterranean one. You have no idea where you are. You have no idea how to get back. Congratulations, you've discovered the public transit system. Enjoy the ride. Surviving the fauna was a matter of reflexes. Surviving the architecture is a war of attrition against your own nerves. But what if you could get an edge? What if those glowing blocks held something that could help you fight back? What if you could become powerful? You might be tempted to find out. You should be careful what you wish for. You're bruised, terrified, and your nerves are shot. You can't go on like this. You need an advantage, an equalizer. Your eyes drift back up to one of those shimmering question mark blocks. The risk of a concussion seems acceptable compared to the certainty of being eaten by your environment. With a running start and a desperate, clumsy leap, you slam your head into the underside of the block. For a moment, all you feel is a blinding flash of pain, the crunch of brick against your skull. Your vision swims, but then, a miracle. A bizarre, oversized mushroom with cartoon eyes pops out and slides towards you. A super mushroom. The legends are true. This is help. This is salvation. You reach out and touch it. The moment your skin makes contact, it's not absorbed. It invades. A jolt of alien energy floods your system. A biological command that screams one word: grow. It starts in your bones. You feel them stretch, pop, and lengthen with agonizing speed, like they're being pulled on a medieval rack. Your joints shriek in protest. Your muscles tear and re-knit themselves in an instant, a wave of fire that courses through your limbs. Your skin, unable to keep up, rips in a dozen places, stretching taut over your new, grotesquely expanded frame. You double over, gasping, as your spine elongates, pushing you to an unnatural height. In 5 seconds of pure, undiluted agony, you've doubled in size. You're stronger, yes, you're bigger. But you're also a walking monument to body horror, your clothes now a collection of tattered rags, your own form feeling alien and unwieldy. This wasn't a power-up. It was a violent, non-consensual genetic mutation forced upon you by a sentient fungus. Your newfound size makes you a bigger target. The next Goomba you fail to avoid doesn't just bump into you. It hits your shin with enough force to make you stumble. And suddenly, the violent transformation reverses. With a wet, slurping sound, you shrink back to your original size. Your bones grind back into place, your skin sags for a moment before tightening, and the world rushes back up to meet you. The whiplash of shrinking is almost as nauseating as the growth. You're weak, trembling, and now you know that any power you gain is temporary, a fleeting loan from a biological loan shark who repossesses your body at the slightest provocation. But maybe there's something better. Another head smash against another brick, and this time a flower emerges. A fire flower. It pulses with an inviting, warm light. You're smarter this time, or at least more desperate. You grab it. The heat doesn't burn you. It sinks into your palms, a tingling warmth that spreads up your arms and settles in your chest. You feel a strange new energy. You try to summon it, focusing, and with a flick of your wrist, a bouncing ball of fire leaps from your hand. It works. You have become a living flamethrower. But there's a catch you didn't consider. The fire doesn't just appear, it's generated by you. Every fireball you throw is accompanied by the smell of searing flesh, your flesh. Your palms are perpetually red and raw, covered in blisters that never seem to heal. You are a tool of destruction, but you are also the fuel. You can fight back, but every attack is an act of self-mutilation. Then you see it. The ultimate prize, a superstar. It doesn't just glow, it radiates pure, chaotic energy, cycling through the colors of the rainbow at a seizure-inducing pace. You touch it, and reality dissolves. Your senses are overloaded. The maddening 8-bit music is replaced by a frantic, high-speed arpeggio that vibrates in your teeth. Your vision fractures into 1,000 shards of blinding light. You are no longer in control. Your body moves on its own, a juggernaut of pure force, plowing through enemies, bricks, and anything else in its path. You don't feel invincible. You feel nothing. You are a passenger in your own skull, watching through a kaleidoscope as your body becomes a wrecking ball. The invincibility ends as abruptly as it began, dumping you back into your own senses with the mental equivalent of a severe hangover. You're disoriented, nauseous, and have no memory of the last 10 seconds of carnage. That wasn't power. That was a complete neurological hijacking. You've been stretched, burned, and had your consciousness temporarily erased. These power-ups aren't gifts. They are curses, dangerous and volatile enhancements that warp your body and mind. And for all this pain, what have you gained? A pocketful of useless gold coins. Which begs the question, what are they even for? With every monster crushed, with every brick shattered, there's a cheerful, metallic ding. A gold coin, stamped with an unfamiliar sigil, spins in the air and falls into your possession. At first, it's a rush. It's a tangible reward for your suffering, a small flicker of positive reinforcement in this candy-colored abyss. You collect another, and another. Soon you have 10, then 50, then 100. Your pockets, if you still had any, would be bulging with them. You are, by any reasonable standard, becoming wealthy. And yet, You are starving. Your stomach growls with a ferocity that a super mushroom can't fix. Your throat is parched, your lips cracked from dehydration. The constant leaping has left you drenched in sweat and utterly exhausted. You need food. You need water. You need a safe place to rest for more than 30 seconds. You look at the pile of gold you've accumulated through violence and property destruction. It's heavy, it's shiny, and it is completely, utterly useless. You can't eat it. You can't drink it. You can't build a shelter with it. It's the ultimate mockery of wealth. You scour the landscape for any sign of civilization, any hint of a marketplace. There are none. There are no farms growing a variety of crops, just the occasional homicidal mushroom. There are no bakeries, no taverns, no inns. There are no merchants to trade with, no artisans selling their wares. There is no economy. The entire kingdom is a ghost town punctuated by death traps. The only infrastructure is the one designed to kill you. Those coins in your hand? They're not currency. They're points. You are a contestant in a planetary-scale game show, and your life is the entry fee. Think of it as the worst unpaid internship in history. Your job description: hero. Your duties include pest control, advanced demolition, and navigating lethal obstacle courses. Your key performance indicator? The number of gold coins you can hoard before you drop dead from exhaustion or fall into a pit. There is no salary. There are no benefits. There is no workers' compensation for when a turtle shell inevitably shatters your kneecap. Your only payment is a meaningless score, a number that goes up while your will to live goes down. Every ding of a new coin is another nail in the coffin of your hope, a sound that reminds you that your struggle has been quantified, gamified, and stripped of all meaning. Your entire existence has been reduced to a gig economy from hell. You are an independent contractor for a monarchy that can't even be bothered to provide basic amenities. Princess Peach promises you... what, exactly? A cake? You're risking life, limb, and sanity for a slice of confectionery. Meanwhile, you're subsisting on God knows what you can scavenge. Maybe that mushroom you stomped is edible? Are you willing to take that chance in a world where the flora tries to bite your face off? You eye a berry on a bush, but its color is a shade of purple that doesn't exist in nature. You decide to stick with starvation. It feels safer. You are a ghost haunting this vibrant, empty world, weighed down by a fortune you can't spend, driven by a goal you didn't choose. You are rich in points and bankrupt in everything that matters. You lie down to rest behind a green pipe, the hard ground digging into your back, the relentless music still drilling into your skull. You clutch a handful of cold, useless metal and wonder what the point of it all is. You run, you jump, you suffer, you collect. For what? To reach a castle? To be told your reward is somewhere else? And as you drift into a fitful, terrified sleep, you begin to wonder who is truly the villain here. The overt monster in his spiky fortress? Or the smiling princess who presides over this brutal, pointless pageant? You did it. Against all odds, you navigated the chasms, survived the wildlife, and endured the agony of the power-ups. You stand before the final door of the first fortress, a place of pure architectural malevolence. The air still smells of sulfur, but you've gotten used to it. The distant screams of whatever is being tormented in the dungeons are now just background noise. You push open the heavy door and step onto the bridge. There he is. The monster, the myth, the legend himself. Bowser. He is a grotesque chimera of turtle and dragon, bigger and more terrifying than you could have imagined. He snarls, breathes a plume of fire, and the fight is on. It's not a noble duel. It's a clumsy, desperate scramble for survival. You dodge fireballs, you leap over his brutish charges, your entire being focused on one single, insane goal: the axe. You see it at the other end of the bridge, a ridiculously oversized emergency release handle just sitting there. Why would he build his throne room with a self-destruct switch in plain sight? The question is irrelevant. You dive for it, your hands close around the handle, and with the last of your strength, you pull. The bridge collapses. The Monster King roars in fury as he plummets into the lava below. You have won. You are the hero. You limp towards the figure waiting at the end of the hall. It's another one of those toad things, with the same dead eyes and fixed smile. It doesn't congratulate you. It doesn't thank you. It doesn't offer you medical attention for the third-degree burns on your arm. It simply chirps out the 6 most soul-crushing words in the universe. Thank you, but our princess is in another castle. And then it just stands there, smiling. The music doesn't change. The world doesn't acknowledge your victory. Your epic struggle, your near-death experience, it was all for nothing. It was the preliminary round. This is the moment your mind finally cracks. It's not about the princess anymore. It was never about the princess. It's about the cycle. The realization hits you like a physical blow. This is your life now. You will run this gauntlet again, and again, and again. Each castle will be harder, each death trap more elaborate, each enemy more numerous. Your reward for surviving hell is a ticket to a slightly worse hell. Your only purpose is to run on this treadmill of someone else's conflict, a pointless war between a tyrant who can't build a secure fortress and a monarch who can't seem to hire competent bodyguards. You are a pawn in a game played by 2 spoiled, overgrown children with access to armies and devastating magic. You are not a hero. You are a disposable asset, a tool to be used and discarded. What happens when you finally do find the right castle? Do you get a parade, a title, a pension plan? No. You get a cake and a thank you. And then what? You wait. You wait for the princess to get captured again, which, given her track record, will probably happen next Tuesday. The cycle will never end because you are too good at your job. Your success is your damnation. As you stare into the toad's vacant eyes, the bright colors of the kingdom seem to fade, replaced by a dull, gray misery. The cheerful music is now a funeral dirge. You think about the bottomless pits. You think about how easy it would be to just take one wrong step to make it all stop. The only true escape from the Mushroom Kingdom isn't through the final castle. It's through a deliberate final failure. This isn't an adventure. It's a psychological horror story about the futility of effort, dressed up in bright, primary colors. And you are its star victim. Welcome to the rest of your life. Hope you like the soundtrack. Imagine for a moment that you are on the verge of the greatest breakthrough of your life. You are a scientist, and after years of research, you are about to cure llama flu, a disease that has plagued your people for generations. You reach for the final chemical, but then you feel a rumbling, not in the earth, but in your own bladder. Suddenly, the cure for llama flu seems utterly insignificant. A singular, all-consuming thought dominates your mind: toilet. You abandon your life's work, sprinting past your astonished colleagues, because in your universe, scientific glory is nothing compared to the catastrophic urgency of a red plumbing icon. Welcome to the foundational religion of the sim world. It has no name, no holy book, and no charismatic leader. It has only one unyielding scripture: a series of 8 green bars that govern every single moment of a sim's existence. From the moment they are willed into being, a sim is not the captain of their soul. They are a frantic middle manager trying to keep 8 demanding celestial clients happy. Hunger, hygiene, energy, fun, social, bladder, comfort, and environment. These aren't just biological needs. They are the divine commandments of an unseen and deeply obsessive cosmic entity. In our world, we can power through hunger for a deadline. We can sacrifice a bit of sleep for a good party. For a sim, this is heresy. Their free will is merely a suggestion, one that can be instantly vetoed by a low-energy bar. Our sociologist notes would describe this as a society built on a hierarchy of desperation. A sim could be in the middle of their own wedding vows, but if their hunger bar turns red, they will unceremoniously leave their partner at the altar to go rummage through the fridge for a day-old hot dog. It's not rude, it's a sacred obligation. This system turns life into a frantic game of divine whack-a-mole, where every joy is temporary and every moment of peace is just a countdown to the next crisis. But this rigid system of control begs a fascinating question. If these needs are a form of divine communication, what is a sim actually doing when they can't fulfill them? Observe the most common religious ritual in the sim world, the prayer of the waving hands. A sim, trapped in a room without a toilet, will not try to break down the door. They will not call for help. Instead, they will stand in place, waving their hands frantically while speaking a string of panicked gibberish, a puddle slowly forming at their feet. From an outsider's perspective, it looks like a complete system failure. But from a sociological standpoint, this is a desperate act of worship. They are praying. They are looking up at the sky, or perhaps directly at the fourth wall, and begging the all-powerful cursor to manifest a solution. They are communicating directly with their God, the very same God who likely locked them in that room for its own amusement. It's a beautifully tragic cycle of divine torment and desperate faith. This sacred doctrine of the green bars is the bedrock of sim society. It ensures that no sim ever gets too ambitious, too creative, or too lost in the moment. Their potential is forever shackled to their plumbing. Their happiness isn't a deep, internal state of being, but a quantifiable score, a spiritual report card graded by their unseen master. A sim with all green bars is a good sim, one who has earned a moment of divine favor. But this constant, frantic pursuit of basic survival is just the first layer of their gilded cage. Once a sim has managed to satisfy these sacred biological quotas, you'd think they'd be free to pursue their own goals. But you'd be wrong. Because the divine puppet master has an even more complex and bizarre ritual in store for them. The delicate and often baffling art of forced friendship. Once a sim has successfully navigated the divine minefield of their own biology, they are faced with an even more perplexing challenge: other sims. In our world, socializing is a delicate dance of anxiety, awkward small talk, and the hope of finding a genuine connection. In the sim world, it is a task, a divine mandate. Picture this: a complete stranger wanders into a sim's home, uninvited. The sim, instead of calling the authorities, is suddenly compelled by an invisible force to approach this intruder and initiate a conversation about llamas. They will then stand there for 6 consecutive hours, cycling through the same 3 topics, until a small green bar above their heads is full. At this point, they are declared best friends. They know nothing about each other's hopes or dreams, but the celestial checklist has been ticked. This is the ritual of forced friendship, a marvel of social engineering that is as brutally efficient as it is emotionally hollow. Our researchers have long been fascinated by the primary mode of communication used in these encounters: Simlish. It is a language devoid of discernible grammar or vocabulary, a stream of expressive gibberish punctuated by wild gesticulations. And yet, it works perfectly. Why? Because the content is irrelevant. The communication isn't happening between the two sims, it's happening between the sim and their omniscient overlord. The plus and minus signs that magically appear in the air after each interaction are not just symbols. They are direct feedback from the divine, a clear signal of whether the commanded action was performed correctly. The goal is not understanding, but accumulation. An observer might conclude that sim society has perfected the social algorithm. It is a predictable, almost mathematical formula for creating relationships. 2 parts: joke, 1 part chat about hobby, and a final, bold high five can forge a bond that, in our world, would take months to build. A sim can arrive at a party a complete unknown and leave with 5 new best friends, having done nothing more than repeatedly execute a series of pre-approved social maneuvers. It is a world without social anxiety, because there is no real social risk. The outcome is predetermined by the omnipotent cursor, which uses Sims as vessels to grind for relationship points. But this raises a profoundly unsettling question. If a Sim's friendships aren't their own, then whose are they, and what are they for? This is where the true and slightly sinister nature of the system reveals itself. Friendship in the world of The Sims is not an emotional reward. It is a resource, a currency. A Sim is often commanded to make friends not for companionship, but to fulfill the arbitrary requirement for a job promotion. Imagine your boss telling you that you cannot become senior vice president until you've successfully high-fived 3 more people at the water cooler. It's absurd, yet it is the law of their land. This turns social interaction into a transactional, goal-oriented task, stripping it of all genuine sentiment. Even more telling is the speed with which these divinely forged bonds can be shattered. The same unseen hand that forced 2 Sims into a 6-hour conversation about gnomes can, with a single click, compel one to slap the other, instantly turning a best friend into a sworn enemy. The Sim has no say in this. They are a puppet in a drama they cannot comprehend, their emotional lives dictated by the whims of a bored god. So we are left with a society of individuals who are masters of interaction, but strangers to intimacy. They are surrounded by friends they were forced to make, and haunted by enemies they never chose. Their social world is a meticulously constructed machine, built not for their happiness, but for a purpose that lies far beyond their understanding. And if their most personal relationships are merely tools, it forces us to ask an even bigger question. What kind of bizarre cosmic projects is their divine benefactor building, with all these manufactured connections and pointless promotions? After mastering the art of not starving to death and accumulating a state-mandated portfolio of friends, a Sim must confront the grand mystery of their world, the economy. In our society, a career is often a source of identity, a long, arduous path of education, hard work, and gradual advancement. In the Sim world, a career is a divine assignment, chosen from a newspaper or a computer, with all the personal investment of picking a pizza topping. One day, a Sim is a cheerful, aspiring painter. The next, they receive a celestial command, and suddenly, they are pursuing a new life path as a criminal mastermind. They possess no skills for this role, no inclination towards evil. It's simply what the cursor has decided for them, likely because the little bandit mask looked funny. This is the foundation of the rabbit hole economy, a surrealist parody of capitalism where labor is invisible and success is arbitrary. The central institution in this system is the rabbit hole itself, a mysterious building where Sims vanish for 8 hours a day. They don't work in any sense we would understand. They are simply absorbed into a void, a temporal and spatial anomaly, only to be spat back out at the end of the day with a paycheck. No Sim ever comes home complaining about their boss or a difficult project. They return with the exact same level of fulfillment or misery they left with, their only tangible change being a slightly fuller bank account. The job itself is a complete abstraction, a black box of non-experience. Is it a wonder, then, that their career progression seems to have no connection to the job itself? Consider the logic of a Sim's promotion. A Sim aspiring to be a world-class chef won't be judged on their cooking. Instead, they'll be commanded from on high to gain a skill point in logic or charisma. They must play chess or practice talking to a mirror, not to become a better cook, but to satisfy a bizarre divine prerequisite. An astronaut won't get ahead by studying astrophysics. They'll get promoted because their omniscient deity decided they needed to befriend 3 more co-workers. It's an economic system where your professional success is entirely divorced from your professional competence. The promotions are not rewards for hard work, but for completing a series of seemingly random side quests laid out by an easily distracted god. The sim is not building a career. They are leveling up a character sheet. But if the work is imaginary and the promotions are nonsensical, what then is the ultimate goal of this strange economic ritual? The answer is profoundly simple: to acquire stuff. The simoleon is the lifeblood of this world, the tangible evidence of divine favor. Sims are driven by a powerful, divinely instilled consumerism. They toil away in their abstract rabbit hole jobs to earn money to buy a slightly better couch, or a fancier television, or a novelty lamp shaped like a flamingo. These objects are not just for comfort. They are status symbols that directly impact a Sim's environment score, one of the 8 holy commandments. A lavishly decorated house is, in essence, a shrine to the cursor's generosity. This creates a beautifully simplistic loop. A Sim is sent to a non-job to earn non-money to buy physical objects that will put them in a better mood, making them more compliant for their next shift at the non-job. It's a perfect, self-contained system of control. The rabbit hole economy, therefore, is not an economy at all. It is a game, played by the cursor for its own amusement. Sims are not workers. They are resource-gathering units. Their careers are not life paths. They are stats to be maxed out. Their homes are not sanctuaries. They are display cases for the trophies of their obedience. They exist in a state of blissful ignorance, never questioning why their dream of being a musician was suddenly replaced with a career in international espionage. They simply do as they are told, their ambitions and desires reshaped daily by the whims of their unseen puppet master. This utter lack of agency in their professional lives is unsettling enough, but it pales in comparison to the meticulously choreographed and frankly alarming efficiency with which they are commanded to pursue their most intimate relationships. In the complex tapestry of human relationships, romance is perhaps the most chaotic and unpredictable thread. It's a journey of vulnerability, misread signals, and years of shared experiences. For a Sim, it's a project with a clear, achievable goal, often completed in a single afternoon. This is the woohoo imperative, a divinely orchestrated mating ritual that strips romance of all its messy, inconvenient humanity and replaces it with the cold, hard logic of a progress bar. A Sim doesn't fall in love. They are assigned a target. The cursor selects a suitable partner and the game begins. The courtship ritual is a masterclass in choreographed efficiency. It begins with an introduction, immediately followed by a barrage of interactions from a pre-approved romantic menu. There is no nuance, no subtlety. A Sim will cycle through flirt, compliment appearance, and tell risque joke with the relentless determination of a telemarketer reading a script. The success of these maneuvers is not measured by a blush or a gentle smile, but by the floating plus signs and the steady filling of a pink relationship bar. This bar is the only thing that matters. It is the sacred vessel of affection, a quantifiable measure of a bond that is being constructed, not felt. The Sims themselves are merely actors in this play, delivering their lines with exaggerated passion, while the true romance unfolds between the cursor and its user interface. What is truly remarkable to our sociologists is the sheer velocity of this process. A Sim can meet a complete stranger by the community pool at noon, and by sunset, they can be engaged. By 9 p.m., they can be married. By 10 p.m., they can be expecting their first child. The entire arc of a lifelong commitment is compressed into a few hours of relentless, strategic clicking. There is no room for doubt, second thoughts, or the slow, organic growth of intimacy. The cursor has willed it, and so it shall be. The proposal itself is not a heartfelt culmination of a deep connection, but a tactical move, deployed the very moment the relationship bar is high enough to guarantee success. It's less a question of, "Will you marry me?" and more a matter of, the algorithm has determined we are now optimally compatible for the next stage. But even this disturbingly efficient journey to the altar is merely a preamble to the ultimate, most mysterious ritual of all. Enter woohoo. This is the pinnacle of a Sim's romantic life, a sacred act so profound that the very laws of physics bend to accommodate it. It is not just an intimate moment. It is a multi-purpose social and emotional tool. Had a bad day at the non-job? Woohoo. Feeling sad because the dishwasher broke? Woohoo. It is the universal solution, the divine panacea for all of life's troubles. When the command is given, the Sims dive under the covers of a bed, which often begins to vibrate violently and emit cartoon hearts, or into another suitably private location. The specifics of the ritual are a mystery, a rabbit hole of intimacy hidden from all prying eyes. All we, as observers, can see is the outcome, a massive boost to the fun and social bars. The act is not about pleasure or connection in the human sense. It is a divine transaction, an exchange of a specific action for a guaranteed boost in quantifiable happiness. The woohoo imperative reveals the ultimate truth about love and relationships in this strange universe. They are not organic emotional experiences. They are systems to be gamed, objectives to be completed. A Sim's partner is not a soulmate, but a perfectly optimized emotional support resource, provided by a benevolent, or just goal-oriented, deity. The Sims are programmed for romance, but not for love. They follow the script, hit their marks, and perform the sacred act of woohoo, all while remaining blissfully unaware that their most profound and personal connections are nothing more than a series of well-executed commands. And if their lives and loves are so thoroughly micromanaged, one has to wonder what happens when the divine puppet master decides it's time for the show to end. In most cultures, death is a profound and solemn event, a final, irreversible tragedy. In the Sim world, death is less of a tragedy and more of an inconvenience. It's a temporary status effect, a bureaucratic process, and most disturbingly, a form of entertainment for their unseen god. For Sims, mortality is not a biological certainty but a gameplay mechanic. And the ways in which they meet their end are often so bizarre, so specific, and so easily avoidable that they can only be interpreted as acts of deliberate divine intervention. Or, to put it more bluntly, acts of divine punishment. Our research has cataloged a stunning variety of these unfortunate accidents. A Sim can perish from starvation while standing a few feet from a fully stocked refrigerator, seemingly paralyzed by an invisible force. They can meet their end from pure exhaustion, collapsing on the lawn because the front door to their own house has mysteriously vanished. They can even die of laughter, overcome by a fatal case of hysterics after being commanded to tell jokes to themselves in a mirror for 12 hours straight. These are not random acts of fate. They are creative executions. They are the work of a bored and whimsical deity who has discovered that managing a Sim's life is far less amusing than orchestrating their demise. Perhaps no case is more famous in our sociological studies than the case of the vanishing pool ladder. It is a cultural phenomenon, a recurring architectural tragedy that has claimed countless lives. A Sim, filled with a sudden, inexplicable desire for a swim, will happily jump into their backyard pool. A moment later, the ladder, their only means of escape, simply ceases to exist. We observe the Sim as they swim in increasingly frantic circles, their green energy bar plummeting, until they eventually succumb to exhaustion. To a Sim, this must be a baffling, terrifying mystery. Why do ladders, a fundamental feature of pool design, spontaneously dematerialize? They have no way of knowing the truth. That their all-powerful god simply dragged it away in build mode to see what would happen. It's not murder, it's a physics experiment. When the inevitable finally occurs, the process of dying is not a lonely passage, but a formal affair. The Sim's final moments are interrupted by the arrival of a special guest, the Grim Reaper. Dressed in a classic black robe and carrying a scythe, Grim is not so much a terrifying specter of doom as he is a cosmic administrator. He's the universe's cleanup crew. He checks his tablet, because of course the harbinger of death has a tablet, confirms the identity of the deceased, and prepares to complete the transaction. But here, The system reveals its most absurd feature. You can negotiate. A living family member can plead with death, challenge him to a game of chess, or even attempt to flirt with him. Death, in the sim world, is open to bribery and susceptible to charm. It's a final, desperate appeal not to fate, but to the game's referee, a last-ditch effort to convince the powers that be that this particular puppet is still worth playing with. Even when this fails, death is rarely the end. The deceased sim simply transitions into a new state of being, an annoying, transparent roommate. Ghosts linger in the house, moaning, breaking the plumbing, and occasionally possessing the toaster. Their presence turns the afterlife into a domestic nuisance. And even this state is often temporary. With enough effort or the right combination of divine commands, a sim can be brought back from the dead, returning to the world of the living as if they just got back from a slightly inconvenient holiday. This entire process transforms mortality from a profound existential dread into a reversible and often comical condition. It reinforces the ultimate truth of their existence. A sim's life and death have no intrinsic meaning. They are tools, playthings in the hands of a celestial being who can give life and take it away, with the casual indifference of a player deciding they're finished with a game. But what happens when the puppets finally start to suspect there's a puppeteer? After observing this civilization for so long, our sociologists, armed with notebooks full of baffling data, must inevitably arrive at a single, radical conclusion. The endless cycles of managed needs, the forced friendships, the abstract careers, the accelerated romances, and the comically trivial nature of death. These are not the organic traits of a developing society. They are symptoms. They are the fingerprints of an unseen, all-powerful, and profoundly erratic intelligence. We have been trying to understand the puppets when we should have been studying the puppeteer. We call this entity the cursor, the god in the machine, the sky hand that builds their homes and, just as easily, traps them within them. This theory of a higher power is the only thing that makes sense of the chaos. It explains why a sim, in a moment of supposed free will suddenly abandon their task to go dance to a stereo that just appeared out of thin air. It explains why houses are often architectural nightmares, filled with rooms that have no doors and objects placed just out of reach. These aren't cultural quirks. They are the whims of a deity who is part architect, part scientist, and part mischievous child with a magnifying glass. The Sims live their entire lives within a divine dollhouse, their every action subject to the fickle moods of their owner. One day, the cursor is a benevolent provider, showering them with wealth and fulfilling their every desire. The next, it is a wrathful god, unleashing plagues of fire or deleting the toilet just before a dinner party. The Sims themselves seem to have a subconscious awareness of this. They don't have a formal religion dedicated to the cursor, but they show signs of acknowledging its presence. When something goes wrong, when they are blocked by a poorly placed chair or commanded to do something they lack the skill for, they will stop, look directly up at the sky, and wave their hands in frustration, babbling in panicked Simlish. It's a prayer. It's a complaint. It is a direct address to the force they know is watching. They are breaking the fourth wall because their entire world is a stage, and they are dimly aware of the audience. They live in a state of perpetual, low-grade, existential dread, knowing that at any moment, the rules of their reality could change without warning. And so, our sociological study of this strange people comes to a close. We came looking for the customs and rituals of a foreign culture, and we found a mirror. A strange, distorted funhouse mirror, but a mirror nonetheless. For what are the Sims, if not a hyper-simplified parody of our own lives? We too are often driven by needs we can't control, trapped in jobs we didn't choose, and pursuing goals that society has laid out for us. We too try to find happiness and meaning within a system whose rules often seem arbitrary and nonsensical. The cursor may be an all-powerful godlike player, but its motivations are distinctly human. A desire for control, a thirst for drama, a need to create, and a tendency to get bored and set things on fire. In the end, despite all the jokes and the absurdity, there is something profoundly human about these little digital people. Their relentless, often futile struggle for happiness in a world designed to challenge them at every turn is strangely inspiring. They wake up every day ready to face the tyranny of the green bars and the whims of their chaotic god, forever striving to get that promotion, to win that friend, to woohoo with the one they were programmed to love. Their lives are a game, but they play it with all the earnestness they can muster. And in their simple, pre-scripted, and utterly bizarre quest for a good life, they remind us that the search for happiness, no matter the circumstances, is a universal story, even if sometimes it involves a missing pool ladder. There is no memory of a world before this one. There is only the sudden, silent awakening. The first breath is drawn not from lungs, but from a stillness so profound it feels like the universe itself is holding its own. The sun is not a gentle orb, but a perfect golden square, climbing a sky of impossible blue. It casts no soft gradients, only hard, deliberate light and long, sharp shadows that cut across the land like ancient, forgotten runes. This is a world born not of slow erosion and gentle curves, but of a quiet, divine geometry. The air carries no scent of decay or of life lived. It is pure, sterile, an empty vessel, waiting for a story to perfume it. The ground beneath the feet is a mosaic of greens and browns, each a distinct and separate note in a chord that has not yet been struck. In the distance, mountains do not rise. They are placed, colossal cubes of stone and earth stacked one upon the other by a hand that knew no haste. Clouds, white and blocky, drift with a purpose that is not their own, silent ships on a sea of azure. There is no history here. No ghosts linger in the valleys. No names are carved into the trees. The land is a blank scroll, and the one who has just awoken is the first drop of ink. This awareness of self comes with a second, more powerful realization: the awareness of solitude. The eyes scan the endless panorama, from the edge of the forest where trees stand in patient, silent rows, to the shimmering surface of a nearby sea that mirrors the perfect sky. There is no movement but the sway of grass, a gentle, unified dance, with a wind that cannot be felt. No bird calls from the canopy. No creature rustles in the undergrowth. There is only the sound of one's own presence, a soft footfall on the earth, a sound so alien in this great silence, it feels like a sacrilege. It is a loneliness not of abandonment, but of primacy, the feeling of being the first thought in a nascent mind, the first beat of a heart, in a world that has, until this very moment, been heartless. And then, a hand is raised. It is a simple gesture, an act of pure instinct. It reaches not for the sky nor for the distant mountains, but for the closest, most tangible thing, a tree. The bark is a coarse, pixelated tapestry of light and shadow. The hand meets the wood, not in an act of aggression, but of inquiry. It is the first question asked of this new reality. What are you? The impact is a low, resonant thud that is swallowed by the silence almost as soon as it is born. Cracks like black lightning, spiderweb across the surface. Another impact, and another. This is not a struggle for dominance. It is a dialogue, a slow, percussive conversation with the skin of the world. It is a plea for the world to acknowledge this new consciousness, to prove that it is not just a dream. And the world, in its own time, begins to answer. The block of wood gives way. It breaks from the trunk not with a splintering crash, but with a soft, final pop, and surrenders itself, hovering for a moment in the air as if in offering. It is the first gift. This small, rough-hewn cube, held now in the palm of a hand that did not seem to exist moments ago, is more than just wood. It is a reply. It is the world's confirmation that it can be touched, known, and even changed. It is the first syllable of a language that will build shelter from the coming night and write poetry against the endless void. In this single, humble object lies the seed of every future home, every bridge, every tower that will one day stand in defiance of the emptiness. The dialogue has begun, a pact made between a lone mind and an entire world, a pact that would shape not only the land, but the very meaning of being within it, a meaning that was waiting to be discovered, just beyond the curve of the unseen horizon. The world does not unfold. It simply is, in all its silent, geometric majesty. To walk upon this land is to move through a painting that is being created just ahead of one's footsteps, a canvas that stretches into an infinity of possibilities. The horizon is not a fixed line in the distance. It is a promise. It whispers of mountains that have never felt a gaze, of oceans whose floors are layered with secrets as old as the world's first light. This is not a landscape to be conquered, but a presence to be communed with, a vast and silent entity that observes the lonely wanderer with a patient geological stare. The journey is a pilgrimage without a destination. Each new vista is a revelation. A desert of red sand, sculpted by an unseen wind into dunes, that rise and fall like the slow breaths of a sleeping giant. The sun beats down here, turning the air into a shimmering veil, and the silence is so absolute that one can almost hear the sand grains shifting, one by one, in a chorus of infinite patience. There are no oases, no signs of life, only the stark, beautiful geometry of emptiness. To stand in the center of such a place is to understand the scale of one's own solitude, to feel like a single, conscious grain in a desert of unthinking matter. And yet, this emptiness is not barren. It is full of potential, a space waiting for a story to be told. A story that might begin with a single stone placed in the sand. The path may then lead to a forest, a dense congregation of trees whose leaves form a canopy of interlocking squares, filtering the sunlight into a dappled, moving mosaic on the forest floor. Here, the world feels smaller, more intimate. The air is cool and still, and the silence is different. Not the open silence of the desert, but a hushed, reverent quiet, as if the trees themselves are listening. They stand as silent sentinels, their straight, uniform trunks creating corridors of shadow and light. To walk among them is to feel a sense of being sheltered, but also watched. The forest knows you are here. It does not judge, it does not welcome, it simply acknowledges. It is an ancient, living cathedral, and the single figure moving through it is its only parishioner. Their soft footsteps the only prayer offered up in its hallowed halls. And beyond the forest, perhaps, lie the mountains. They are not gentle, rolling hills, but stark, brutalist monuments of stone and dirt clawing at the sky. Climbing them is a slow, rhythmic meditation, a physical act of devotion. Each block of earth placed to create a makeshift step is a word in a conversation with the peak. With every gain in altitude, the world unfurls below, a map of what has been and a testament to the journey. From the summit, one can see everything: the distant forest, a ribbon of river cutting through a plain, the faint hint of a different biome shimmering on the very edge of sight. It is from this vantage point that the true nature of the world is revealed. It has no end. The landscape generates itself into eternity, a seamless, unending poem. To witness this is to feel both omnipotent and utterly insignificant, a king of an infinite, empty kingdom, a lonely God gazing out upon a creation that does not need a creator. It is a profound, humbling beauty, a pact of understanding between the observer and the observed, a silent acknowledgement that the world will always be larger than the one who walks upon it, its secrets deeper than any single mind can ever hope to comprehend. A depth that calls from beneath the very earth in the darkness below. The sun begins its slow, deliberate descent, its square face sliding towards the western horizon. The perfect shadows of the day begin to lengthen, stretching like dark fingers across the plains. A chill, not of temperature, but of atmosphere, seeps into the air. The world, which was a place of silent wonder, now holds a different kind of quiet, a watchful, expectant hush. The night does not fall. It rises from the earth, from the deep places, from the corners of the eye. It is in this moment that the fundamental need is born, not for food or for water, but for a boundary, a line to be drawn between the self and the vast, encroaching unknown. The first act of creation is an act of defense, not against a physical threat, but against the crushing weight of infinity. The hands that once spoke to the world through the simple rhythm of gathering now begin to speak a new language, the language of placement. A block of wood taken from the forest's silent congregation is placed upon the ground. It is a humble, solid thing. Beside it, another, and another. This is not yet architecture. It is a thought made tangible. It is the beginning of an argument against the chaos, a quiet declaration that says, "Here I am. This small patch of earth is mine." Each block set down is a word of defiance against the formless void, a spell cast against the encroaching dark. Slowly, methodically, a shape begins to emerge. There are 4 walls rising from the grass like a memory of a life never lived. The process is a slow, meditative dance. Take from the world, and then give back to it, but in a new form, a new order. The rough texture of wood, the cool, solid weight of stone dug from the hillside. These are the elements of a nascent sanctuary. There is no blueprint, no grand design. The structure grows organically, a direct translation of an inner feeling into an outer form. It is the body creating its own shell, a snail building its spiral home not from instinct, but from a conscious, desperate need for meaning. The walls rise higher, and with each layer, the world outside seems to retreat, its boundless expanse held at bay by a simple barrier of wood and earth. And then, the final block is placed. A roof. The sky, once an infinite, overwhelming presence, is now framed by a doorway, a window. It has been given a context. The sound of the wind is no longer a lament of the void, but a gentle drumming against the walls. Stepping inside this tiny, self-made space is a profound transformation. The world has been partitioned. There is an outside, and there is an inside. Here, within these 4 walls, the silence is different. It is no longer the silence of emptiness, but the silence of refuge. It is a quiet that belongs to you. This humble, box-like structure, crude and imperfect, is more than a shelter. It is the first verse of a poem. It is a point of anchor in a drifting world, a center to a universe that previously had none. It is a testament that a single, conscious mind can impose its will upon the endless canvas of reality, creating order from the very elements of chaos. An order that would soon find its rhythm not just in building, but in the patient, cyclical wisdom of the earth itself. Beyond the safety of the 4 walls, the world continues its silent, indifferent existence. The shelter provides a center, a point of return, but a life lived only in refuge is a life half-lived. The dialogue with the land must evolve. It must move from the declarative statement of a house to a more intimate, ongoing conversation. This new chapter is not written in stone or wood, but in the soft, yielding earth. It begins with a new tool, a simple hoe, an instrument designed not to take from the world, but to gently persuade it. The act of tilling the soil is one of pure faith. Each time the hoe breaks the unbroken surface of the grass, it is an appeal to a hidden potential within the land. The dark, rich earth that is turned over smells of stillness and time, a scent of pure, dormant life. A small patch of land is chosen, near the water's edge, where the ground can drink and be nourished. This is not an act of conquest, of claiming territory, but of partnership. The earth is not being commanded. It is being invited to participate in a new cycle. The neat, parallel rows that are carved into the ground are a human geometry laid gently upon the world's own blocky design, a pattern of hope imposed upon the wild canvas. Into these humble furrows, a seed is placed. A tiny, almost insignificant object, a speck of dormant energy held in the palm of a hand. To plant it is to commit an act of profound optimism. It is to trust in a future that has not yet been promised, to trust that the square sun will provide its light, that the patient clouds will weep their rain, and that the earth itself will hold this fragile life in its dark embrace and nurture it towards the sky. The process is repeated over and over, a quiet, rhythmic ritual. Plant and wait. Plant and hope. This is a work of patience, a discipline learned not from a book, but from the unhurried cadence of the land itself. There is no instant gratification here, only the slow, steady promise of what is to come. Days and nights cycle past. The sun and moon perform their celestial dance. And the earth keeps its promise. Tiny green shoots, perfect square sprites of vibrant color, break through the dark soil. They are a miracle in miniature, an answer from the silent world, a confirmation of the pact. Watching them grow is a form of meditation. They reach for the light with a quiet, unyielding determination. Their growth so slow, it is invisible to the impatient eye, yet undeniable over time. This is not just the cultivation of food, it is the cultivation of purpose. In tending to these fragile stalks of wheat, the lone inhabitant is no longer just a wanderer or a builder, but a guardian, a caretaker. This small, ordered field, with its gentle rhythm of growth and harvest, becomes an anchor, grounding the soul in the cycles of life itself. A rhythm that mirrors the greater, more profound cycle of the sun and the moon, of the light and the dark. The world is defined not by what it has, but by what it lacks. There is no birdsong to announce the dawn, no chorus of insects to serenade the dusk. There is only the great silence. It is the canvas upon which all other sounds are painted, giving them a weight and significance they would not otherwise possess. The rhythmic thud of an axe against wood, the soft hiss of a torch being placed on a cavern wall, the gentle lapping of water against a shore. Each is an event, a punctuation mark in an endless, unwritten sentence. But most of the time there is only the quiet. At first, this silence is a presence, an invisible companion that walks beside you, its sheer volume pressing in from all sides. It amplifies the solitude, making the world feel vaster, more empty. The ears strain, searching for a voice, a call, any sign of another consciousness. But the world remains mute. The mountains do not echo with answers. The forests do not whisper secrets. The silence is a mirror, reflecting back only the sound of one's own existence. The soft crunch of footsteps on gravel, the heavy sound of breathing after a long climb, the frantic beat of a heart in the sudden dark. It is a terrifying and humbling conversation with the self. But as days turn into weeks, and weeks into seasons of one, the nature of the silence begins to change. It ceases to be an absence and becomes a presence of a different kind. It is no longer an emptiness to be filled, but a space to be inhabited. The constant, desperate search for external sound gives way to a new kind of listening, an inward listening. In the profound quiet of a world without chatter, the inner voice, so often drowned out by the noise of existence, begins to speak. It speaks not in words, but in thoughts that rise, unbidden, to the surface of the mind. Plans for a new structure, a memory of a color seen in a sunset, a sudden sharp pang of a loneliness that is no longer frightening, but tender. This is the gift of the great silence. It strips away all distraction, forcing a confrontation with the core of being. It is in the quiet moments, standing on a hilltop watching the blocky clouds drift by, or sitting by a window as square raindrops streak down the glass, that the deepest work is done. The world becomes a monastery, and solitude, its most sacred vow. The silence becomes a vessel for contemplation, a fertile ground where creativity, resilience, and a profound sense of peace can grow. It is no longer a void to be feared, but a sanctuary to be cherished. It is the sound of the universe breathing, and in its rhythm, one can finally hear the gentle, steady beat of their own heart. A quiet drum in the deep, a sound that calls one to explore not only the world without, but the one that lies waiting in the darkness beneath, the very heart of the world itself. The surface of the world is a place of light, of open skies and known horizons. It is a world of growth, of seasons, of a beauty that is plain to see. But this world has a shadow self, a secret heart that beats in the darkness below. To truly know the land, one must do more than walk upon it. One must enter into it. The journey downwards begins with a single deliberate act, breaking the skin of the earth. The first block of stone removed reveals not just more stone, but a promise of depth, a passage into the unknown. This is not just mining. It is a pilgrimage. The descent is a gradual surrender of the familiar. The light of the sun is the first thing to be left behind, its warmth and clarity replaced by the small, defiant glow of a single torch. The world of blues and greens gives way to an eternal twilight of gray and black. The sounds change, too. The whisper of the wind is gone, replaced by an intimate subterranean quiet. The only sounds are the rhythmic chink of the pickaxe against stone, a sound that counts out the seconds in this timeless place, and the faint, unsettling drip of water from an unseen ceiling. This is the world's subconscious, a labyrinth of its own sleeping thoughts. And to enter it is to walk through a dreamscape of stone. The darkness down here is not an absence of light. It is a substance. It is absolute, primordial, a physical presence that clings to the edges of the torchlight. It presses in, filling every passage, holding ancient secrets in its suffocating embrace. To move through it is an act of sheer will, a constant battle between the fragile flame of the torch and the infinite night. But the darkness is not empty. It holds life of a different sort, moans that echo from unseen chasms, the dry rattle of bones in a forgotten corner. These are the fears of the world made manifest, the guardians of its deepest treasures. To face them is to face the anxieties of one's own isolated heart, to find courage not in the absence of fear, but in the persistence of the light carried in one's hand. And it is for that light that the pilgrimage is made. For deep within the earth's heart, the world hides its most profound beauty. A sudden cavern opens up, vast and cathedral-like, its ceiling lost in the oppressive dark, its floor a garden of impossible things. Rivers of incandescent lava flow with a silent, deadly grace, casting a hellish, beautiful glow on the stone walls. Waterfalls cascade from unseen heights, their spray creating a mist that catches the light of the torch in a halo. And then, a glint of color in the torchlight, a flash of brilliant, impossible blue, embedded in the dull gray stone. Diamonds. They are not sought for wealth, for there is no one to trade with. They are sought for what they represent, a perfect, luminous beauty born from immense pressure and absolute darkness. To find one is to find proof that even in the deepest, most lightless places, a brilliant and enduring light can be found. A light that one can then carry back to the surface, to build a legacy not just of shelter, but of beauty, a silent kingdom to stand as a testament. Time in this world is not measured in days or years, but in projects. It is marked by the completion of a bridge, the raising of a tower, the taming of a river. The lone inhabitant, who once sought only a simple shelter from the night, has become an architect of memory, a sculptor of their own history. The landscape, once a wild and untamed canvas, now bears the gentle, geometric scars of a life lived. It is a world transformed, not by conquest, but by a long and patient conversation. To walk through this world now is to read the chapters of a silent autobiography. There stands the first house, small and humble, a monument to the first fear of the dark, now preserved as a sacred relic. From it, a cobblestone path, worn smooth by the passage of a million solitary footsteps, leads to grander structures. It winds past the orderly, vibrant green of the wheat fields, a testament to the discovery of patience and rhythm. It crosses a meticulously crafted bridge, its arches a quiet defiance of the ravine below, a symbol of a problem solved not with force, but with ingenuity and foresight. Every block, every path, is a memory made solid. The journey continues towards a structure that was once an impossible dream. A castle, its towers piercing the square clouds, its walls a mosaic of 1,000 journeys into the heart of the world. It is built from the gray stone of the mountains, adorned with the deep red of sandstone from a distant desert, and lit from within by the captured fire of lava and the cool, ethereal glow of luminous moss found in the darkest caves. This is not a fortress built for war, for there are no enemies to repel. It is a cathedral to a single, persistent thought. It is an act of love for a world that gave nothing but its raw, silent potential. Its empty halls echo not with the ghosts of kings and queens, but with the quiet satisfaction of its sole creator. This collection of structures is a kingdom, but a kingdom without subjects. Its ruler is also its only citizen. The legacy being built is not for a future generation, for there is no one to inherit it. It is a legacy for the self. It is the act of externalizing an inner world, of building a physical manifestation of one's own soul to prove that it exists. To stand on the highest parapet of the castle and look out upon the world is to see a reflection. The orderly fields, the strong bridges, the soaring towers, they are all mirrors, showing not a face, but the shape of a mind, the character of a will, the quiet beauty of a lonely spirit. This is the living heritage, a profound and personal answer to the great, silent question of existence, a poem written in stone and light for an audience of one, an echo that will persist, even as the final sun begins to set. The sun begins to set, perhaps for the 1,000th time, perhaps for the last. From the highest tower of the silent kingdom, the world is a masterpiece of light and shadow. The familiar geometric orb sinks below the horizon, painting the clouds in hues of orange and purple, a final, fleeting spectacle of beauty. The long shadows of the castle, the fields, and the forest stretch out, merging with the growing dusk. The world is preparing for its sleep, and in the profound quiet, a single, ultimate question hangs in the air, as vast and silent as the sky itself. Why? Why was this all built? Why was a single stone ever laid upon another? There was no one to impress, no society to serve, no enemy to vanquish. There was no one to see the perfect symmetry of the garden, to walk the empty halls of the castle, to marvel at the diamond glinting in the torchlight. The entire world, this sprawling testament to a single life, has been witnessed by no one but its creator. The question is not one of regret, but of pure philosophical inquiry. It is the final, deepest level of the dialogue with the void. And the answer comes, not in a voice from the heavens, but in the quiet, steady feeling of the stone beneath the feet. It was built because the hands needed to build. It was built because the mind needed to create order from chaos. It was built because beauty, even when unwitnessed, is its own justification. Each block was a triumph over entropy. Each structure was a victory against the encroaching meaninglessness of an infinite, indifferent world. The purpose was never in the finished product, but in the act of creation itself. It was in the patient tending of the wheat, the courageous descent into the dark, the meticulous placement of a single block to complete an arch. It was a journey, not a destination. This is the poetry of a life lived in absolute solitude. It is the discovery that meaning is not something to be found in the world, but something to be brought to it. The lone creator did not seek to fill the emptiness of the world, but to fill the emptiness within themselves. The silent kingdom is not a monument to ego, but a monument to the enduring, unquenchable human spirit. the spirit that plants a flower in a wasteland, that sings a song in an empty room, that writes a poem that no one will ever read. It is the purest form of creation, untainted by the need for applause or recognition. The last sliver of the sun disappears. The stars, sharp and white, prick the dark fabric of the night. The Creator looks out upon their work, this world born of their hands and their will, and they know that even if they were to vanish in this moment, to cease to be, the work would remain, the castle would stand, the bridges would span the ravines, the light would continue to shine from the windows, the world would return to its silence, but it would no longer be an empty silence. It would be a silence that holds an echo, the echo of a single, determined life that for a time pushed back against the void and filled it with a quiet and beautiful and solitary meaning.